You made the big move from London to Australia. So, how has that impacted your family life?
Well, it's been a huge impact, I guess, in so many ways. And obviously, it's been 8 years since we've lived here in Australia, and so I were able to really reflect on it's such a different chapter. So there was like life in London and life here in Australia, and so many differences. We really we loved London. We still love London. We think so fondly of our time there. But in the end, it really came down to wanting to spend more time as a family. That became kind of our biggest goal. I
Mhm.
think Michael and I were working really hard, really long hours, just to afford the life that we had there. And it felt really busy. And we just wanted to really slow things down, have less financial pressure on us, and just spend more time with our children. That was just the goal. And so, yeah, so we sold our home and most of our belongings, and um, went and traveled for 18 months before moving here to Australia. And definitely living here, it there's upsides and downsides to everywhere, but we definitely spend more time as a family. And we definitely, life is slower. Michael and I both work from home.
Mhm.
We spend almost probably too much time together. um, so yeah, so it is very different, and obviously the weather is a huge factor. We spend a lot more time outside, and we're near the ocean, and so
Mhm.
um, we spend a lot more time at the beach, which we never did in London, and so there's a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge contrast to the
Yeah.
way we live there.
Do the kids who really remember and grew up in London, do they remember that? Do they ever want that again, or they love where you're at now?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. The teenagers, I think, the ones who remember London really well, they talk about London really fondly, and I think some of them even want to go to school back in the UK, to university. And some of them talk about living there someday. So I think they definitely remember it fondly, um, which would be amazing for them, if they do. Um, so they and interestingly, like the I was we were in America in July visiting family, and we were playing pickleball, and the two guys that showed up at the pickleball court started talking to my eldest son, who's 19, and right away they heard he has a funny sounding accent, and they asked him where he's from, and he said, well, I'm British, but I live in Australia. And I thought that was so interesting because
Yeah.
I guess I'd never thought to ask my kids what they feel, because Michael and I are both American.
Yeah.
Um, four of our five children were born in London, and but we live here in Australia, and they have all three passports. So it's a funny thing. It must be a funny thing for them. Like, where
Mhm.
are they from, and who are they? Um,
Yeah.
in terms of, yeah. But yeah, I think definitely the kids feel a very strong connection to
Mhm.
London and to the UK.
I never asked what led you from the States to London.
Michael and I had just started dating, and um, I think we had been dating for 2 months, and we decided it was 4th of July weekend, and we decided very last minute to plan a trip to London. He had miles on Virgin, and we just really, like, one night in his bedroom decided we were going to go have this little holiday in London. And while we were there, he went and had a coffee with this guy who owns a company, an animation studio in London, and that's what Michael does. He works in animation production, and he was offered a job there. And we'd only been dating for 2 months, and and so we had to make, like, really kind of a big decision. And and I was young. He's 11 years older than I am, and I had only just graduated from university, and he was he was more reluctant to, to move together. I was so keen. I was like, "Hey, what's the worst that can happen if we don't like living together in a new city in Europe? I'll just move home." And yeah, and so he kind of moved there. He moved all his boxed up his apartment in LA and moved to London, and then I literally just like followed him 2 weeks later with two suitcases, and that was it. I mean,
Wow.
I never moved to London properly. We built our life together in London from that, and we really
Wow.
thought, he signed a 1 year. I think he signed actually a 3 month contract hoping it would be a year. And then after the year, he signed a 3 year contract. And I think we really thought it would be 3 years max. And it ended up being 12 years, 12 years in London. And we had four babies and lots of things.
How did your parents take this news?
Actually, I think, but well, I don't know. I mean, I grew up in a small town and I was always really keen to get out of there. I'm the
Okay.
eldest in my family. And I think they know me and know my personality. I went to university in Chicago. I went to Northwestern,
Okay.
and the first year I stayed and did summer school. Like I kind of never went back home after
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
And I think it didn't really shock them uh,
Hmm.
for me to go and yeah. I mean, they also really liked Michael, so they weren't, worried for me or anything.
Yeah. And then you started a company there in London, is that right?
Yeah, I didn't that all started so organically. I studied journalism and I thought I would work in journalism. I got pregnant with Easton after we had lived in London for just a year. And so I never, I sort of had been nannying for a family in London until I got pregnant. And then I was young, I was only 22.
Okay.
Um, and, and then I got pregnant with Easton and then I had a second. So when our second baby was born, I decided to start a blog with three other mothers who had children the same ages. And um, we had all met when our first babies were born in London, and all three of them had then moved out of London. So one of them moved back to Italy, one moved to Amsterdam, and one moved to Paris. And so we started this blog as a way to stay in touch and share ideas with each other. And we would like post recipes for each other to make for our children or our families. And then we would like post craft projects, just ideas that we'd gathered. And it literally started as sort of like an online journal or just like a platform to share with each other. And it was the very early days of blogging. I mean, I remember not even knowing what a blog was when we started. And it in the end became kind of one of the first mommy blogs or parenting blogs in the UK. And we did it without knowing we were starting a business or embarking on a new career.
That's so amazing. What did you enjoy
Yeah.
those years or
Yes. I mean, I learned so much. I'm not really tech savvy at all. And I had to learn, how to work a blog and I had to learn HTML and how to do all these things that kind of felt very out of my comfort zone. And and it quickly turned from being a blog where we were just writing to each other to being a business. Ad
yeah.
brands and shops wanted to advertise, and that was back in the day where you had like a sidebar of a blog and you'd have
Yeah.
ads in there, and then
Right.
and before long we then turned it into like a bigger shopping platform, so it was kind of like an online directory of
Mhm.
independent children's brands. And so we we and we still had the blog, but we turned it into a business. And so I really had to learn on the go. We never had a business plan. I constantly was becoming busier and um yeah, like learning, yeah, just like I said, learning as we went. And Um, you know, it was amazing. It was kind of like we were I was growing my career without even really having a plan. But all
That's,
so fun, and so fun to work with other friends, you know, for
yeah,
so
you
long.
guys like aligned all the way through once it really became this, took on its own shape.
Yeah, I think once it started to become work, the one of the four of us stopped doing it because she had another job and she didn't have the time for it. So the
Yeah.
three of us then took it on, and then eventually it became so much work that the third one couldn't really do it either. So she still contributed to the blog, but my business partner Esther in Amsterdam, we ran the business together, and we did that for I think something like 15 years or something, like really a
Really?
long time. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Amazing. So you've been in the parenting space now for over 15 years, and now you have your own e-courses and you talk about parenting and raising teenagers. So, what's kind of the most important thing like you think that parents need to understand right now?
In terms of teenagers or in terms of parenting in general?
Maybe just parenting in general for now. Then we'll get to the teens.
Oh my gosh, that's such a big question to answer.
Mm,
Um, I I really think it's so important to know that everything is just a phase.
yeah.
I look back at those early days when at one point I had three kids under the age of four, and obviously those days came with their own challenges, and it was hard and exhausting, and everything you do feels hard, just even getting in the car and going somewhere, or leaving your house and going to the park. It's so many shoes to put on and so many coats to zip up um and just so it actually feels quite blurry when I think back onto those days, and they were really hard, and yet now I really, it seems so beautiful too. I look back at those days and think, oh well, they were so special those days. um but, but I remember knowing that it felt hard, and also it changes and it becomes, everything changes. Like even now, I have challenges that are so, so, so different to those earlier days of parenting little kids, and new challenges come up. And I think it's way easier to have teenagers than to have a bunch of little kids in the house. But still, you have to learn new skills, and
Right.
um, yeah, and like, I mean, I've always tried to seek that balance, but definitely balance looked so different 15 years ago to what it looks like now for me. And now I have much more time for myself. I have much
Hmm.
more time for my husband.
Yeah.
Um, I and and to me, like, my idea of balance now does, my time and self-care, that's huge. But back in, you know well, 18 years ago, when I start well what I've been parenting for nearly 20 years. um those early days, I was not doing anything for myself. I didn't carve out time. I felt like I was treading water, and Michael and I had like a solid relationship in that we were both parenting and equally invested in that. But our relationship is so much better now because I think we have more time and more, um, just more space for each other.
Yeah.
Um, I do think it's always good to know it's a phase, and to know that everything changes. Um, and I'd say in terms of teenagers, um, one thing I've really learned is that, and I've learned this from experience. Obviously, I almost have four teenagers. Um, but, I've learned, and also from the research I've done, I think the more that you understand them and the changes that they're going through, the more patience you can have. And
Hmm.
really, patience is such an important one for raising teenagers.
Uh,
Um, and that has been helpful for me to just really understand what they're going through, and they are going through so much, and to have that compassion for them even
mhm.
when they're not being their best self, or you
Yeah.
know and just not taking it personally. That's a big one, I think, for parenting teenagers, because as I found, especially me, I have so much pride in my kids and the way that I feel I intentionally parent my children, and then when they are nasty to you, or they do something mean or rude or whatever, you can take it so personally. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it really is kind of separating yourself from that, and trying not to take things personally has been helpful for me in having teenagers.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. I've also been trying to learn that their moods don't have to dictate my moods, and there can be a
Yeah.
separation in that, but that is it takes practice, I'm learning.
Oh, it takes so much practice, and you can be so. I mean, I feel, at least I can be so good at it for so long, and then something can happen, and you're like, you lose your cool, and you're like, damn it, I was doing
I,
so well.
I know.
But I've also learned that, like, losing your cool is not necessarily a bad thing. I think
Right,
sometimes it's nice for kids to see that, like, you're not perfect either, and you lose your cool, and it's sort of what happens after that that's
right.
important. Being able to say sorry, and to explain that it's not their fault that you lost your patience, and those kind of resolutions. That's actually another really beautiful thing I think about raising teenagers, compared to raising toddlers, because toddlers and teenagers can be very volatile and throw tantrums, obviously for different reasons. But um, with teenagers, I think they have this beauty of being able to reflect on their behavior, or reflect on the situation that happened. Where, like, with a toddler, you can't be like, "Hey, that thing you did last week," or that thing that tantrum you threw 3 days ago. But with teenagers, you can actually just give yourself space from it, even if it's like a day, 3 days, whatever, and then come back to them and say, "Hey, you remember when you said that thing, or remember when I did that thing?"
Mm,
And you can connect in the resolution of it,
yeah,
and it can be like a learning experience for you both,
yeah,
which I really love, because I think sometimes, it's like, you don't have to act in the moment. With toddlers, you kind of have to, and with teenagers, you can kind of, like, let them have their tantrum, or let them kind of become super emotional and whatever, and as long as you can kind of stay steady in it, you can come back to it and have that be a teaching moment. It doesn't have
yeah.
to happen right then.
That's a really good advice because even though that is the situation in toddlers, sometimes even in teenagers, you feel like you need to
Yeah.
react in the moment or handle it in the moment. So, yeah, that's really smart. How do you balance giving your kids independence while just still wanting to be there with them and support them?
I think it's one of those things that doesn't just happen overnight, that they want independence. I've learned that it it's such a I think people who don't have teenagers yet think, "Oh my gosh, like, how am I going to just let them go, to a party by themselves, and where there might be alcohol, like, you kind of can't imagine it." But for me, it hasn't just happened that you say no and then you say yes. It's like, it happens so gradually, and there's, like,
Mhm.
these little steps in place, or at least I have found that way. When Easton wanted a little bit of independence, like walking into town and meeting his friends, it was like, okay, you can do that as long as you're back home by this time, and then
Mhm.
it's like he kind of goes a little, and then he comes back, and then maybe a few months later it's a little bit longer that he goes. And when
Yeah.
he first started wanting to go to parties, I think he was like 15 or 16, it was like, okay, you can go. I'd like the number of the parents whose home it is, and I would call that parent, and we'll drop you off and we'll pick you up. Um, And so there was a lot of holding him within that independence, and
Yeah.
eventually we would allow him, once he got his driving license, we would allow him to go and come back on his own. Now, obviously, he's nearly 20 years old and he does all those things by himself. So it's like it scales up. And so
Right.
I think that letting your kids have independence, even it starts even happening when they're little, when they're toddlers, you learn, how much independence you're going to let them have when they go to climb the tree in the park. Are you going to
Right.
stand there and hold their hand? And at what point are you going to let them go a little bit of the ways up the tree before you tell them to stop? And it's just learning that relationship and being able to kind of trust yourself when you're making those decisions and knowing what's right for your child. It just, I think so much of parenting comes down to just being extremely aware of things, aware of what feels good to you and what's right for your child, and standing firm in that. So kind of not really being influenced by perhaps what other parents are doing, or what you know that expert might say. It's kind of you tuning into your own relationship with your child and having the awareness of what's right for you and your child.
Mhm. Mm. I really love that, Courtney. Your oldest just moved to college, so how are you handling that? Like, how did that feel?
Gosh, it felt so much harder than I thought it was going to feel.
Really? Really?
um, I, I cried for like 3 days straight, and I just felt so strange. I felt like I also had the flu. I had been in bed for a week, and leading up to the point where he was going to get on an airplane and fly to Hawaii.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was also kind of unwell physically. And then just became extremely sad. And then I had like physical pains, and I couldn't tell if it was like emotional or physical. It was so strange. It felt like someone took out like a vital organ of my body and said, now carry on. And yeah, I was really emotional, and it was really beautiful, actually. It made me so proud of him because he was also emotional, and he could really reflect on
Mm,
um, his childhood, and how big of a moment it was for us as a family, for him, for me. And
mm,
we really talked about it, and he was so sweet in that. And I think, looking back on it, it was a lot of, I was really, I think, upset in many ways because there's so much unknown to it. You worry, are they going to be happy there? Are they going to be okay? Are they going to be safe? And more for me, I was just like, is he going to love it? I hope he loves it, because he was so
yeah.
excited, and I didn't
Mm,
want him to get there and not love it. And now, I mean, he left back in August, so it's been a few months, and he's so happy. He's absolutely thriving. I've never spoken to him. I've never seen him so happy. And I think the fact that he's so happy really makes me feel so good.
mm.
Um, so it's been a journey. I was really sad at first, but now I'm just so happy for him. I can almost not even be sad for myself anymore.
How does like the home feel now that one is missing?
Yeah, and that was really weird at first. It really felt strange, and I think I really felt like I grieved the end of that chapter of having all my babies at home, and all of 5 kids at the dinner table, and all those things that you love. Um, and it felt weird and quiet in weird ways, and then to watch the other children kind of navigate it too felt I I think every one of us was tender and about it,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all quite different. Like, actually, I found my second son, he kind of has come into himself more. I think he's kind of taken on this role of being the eldest, and he's become much more comfortable in himself, and talks more
Mm,
in family situations, which I think is so great. And so that's been nice. So I think, and it does, it's like it kind of has had a shift. I sometimes I get sad about, like our youngest is 7 and he will often say he misses Easton and he had a really sweet relationship with him. And it makes me sort of sad that he only got, 7 years with this big
Yeah.
brother. Um, but that is the way it is. And Easton will come home for Christmas, so it's not like it's completely over their
Yeah.
relationship. But yeah, but it's like anything in parenting. It's like a journey, and you have to adjust. And yeah, I mean, I found it really, really emotional.
Mm.
I'm finally able to talk about it without crying, although I almost just did start to cry.
I almost cried. I almost cried. My daughter will be going to college, I guess, next August. So somehow
Mm,
I already
yay.
think it's going to be miserable. So maybe, maybe that
Maybe you'll
might,
be prepared.
yeah, maybe.
It's I
Uh,
wasn't prepared for it. I called my mom actually and was like, "Why didn't you tell me this was gonna happen?" So maybe you'll be much. It'll be
maybe,
easier for you.
maybe. Um, you have so many courses on your site, and a lot of them are talking about parenting, but some of them are also sharing recipes and they're talking about nurturing, your home and your family. Can you just kind of describe like your overall philosophy to parenting?
We really value family time.
Hmm.
That's really important to us, and time together. We really value rituals and rhythms and routines. I think when I think about our family time, I think we have a lot of really important rituals to us that our children love and that I think are really important. Um, just like traditions, and I don't know. I just think um, maybe we have there's a lot of intention to the way that we parent. I think about it a lot, and I try to um, make it special for my kids, and make it special for us as well to enjoy our time with them.
I like that. What are some of the rituals that your family has?
That's like little things, like I get the littler kids to set the table before dinner, and um, we get them to light candles on the dinner table, and we do this every night because I think it's like we put like linen napkins and on the table, and we make it like a nice experience for our family. And obviously not every night. Like,
Yeah.
last night we had soccer practice, and so we came home and it was rushed, and it's like you eat quickly and then it's bedtime. But um, we really try to honor that family dinner, and we sit at the table and we share bits and pieces from our day, and we don't get up from the table until everyone's finished. And um, we have a tin of chocolate that sits in our pantry, and we bring the tin of chocolate out after dinner, and everyone gets a little square of chocolate. And so it kind of, we linger longer at the table because of that, maybe. And I don't know, like little things like that. Like we do every Saturday morning, we do pancakes, and we we put all the toppings on the kitchen island, and the kids kind of trickle into the kitchen and with their messy bed hair and their pajamas, and they they sit, and I don't know, and we drink coffee, and that's like a really beautiful ritual for us. We you know I kind of learned very early on in parenting that, like, Saturday mornings, both Saturday and Sunday mornings, were really important to us, and that was really quality family time. And if the kids got invited to a birthday party, like a classmate birthday party on a Saturday morning, I would just say no, because I just didn't want to um, miss out on that family time. It was, I kind of learned, like, that was important to us. And so it meant, sometimes, like, even now, it means that we get to the beach later than our friends do. And um, that's okay, because we have that family time and we do that, and then we get to the beach, and it might mean that like the parking is harder to get and we've missed like good surfing waves or whatever, but we had that time together. So yeah, I don't know. I think we do little things like that that hold our family and have kind of that special time together.
I love that. That's really beautiful. You've taken up surfing, right?
Yeah, it's such a fun thing to do as a family, and I'm so happy that we have discovered it. I mean, obviously, I'd never surfed before, before moving here, and so I learned probably 6 years ago. So Wilkie was probably like one, and we've learned as a family, and it's something we all enjoy doing, and it's so fun because you can just all be at the beach, and
Yeah.
sometimes, we're all out in the ocean together, which is such a huge joy.
Wow.
Um, it's like it's amazing to do that, all be all together. Um, and yeah, I mean it's a really beautiful sport because you're moving your body, you're connected to nature. There's something very meditative about sitting on a board in the ocean, watching waves roll in, and um, yeah, you really come in from a surf with like a very empty brain. I find like
Oh,
any kind of thoughts that you had or anxieties or stresses or whatever that were in the brain when you walked out to the water, you somehow don't have them anymore when you come in.
wow, that's beautiful. I'm switching gears just a little bit. You're kind of in this midlife season, like with me and a lot of our listeners. So, what has been your experience? What have you noticed and felt? And how do you feel about the whole process of aging?
Um, I I really, I guess for the most part, I really enjoy it. I I feel I actually went to a friend's 40, no, she's turning 39. I went to her birthday dinner the other night and she was talking about how um, she doesn't want to turn 40. And I was thinking about that feeling of being 39, and I said to her, I would not go back to being 39 if you paid me. I honestly feel I mean, I'm only 43, so it's only been 4 years since I was 39,
Hmm.
but I've done so much growing
Mm,
in that time and changing, and like I have so much more um I guess I don't know, I feel so much more comfortable being who I am, so much more love for myself.
hmm.
Um and I just when I think back to being 39, I was still kind of uncomfortable, and there was this it was felt like a transition. And um do you know that analogy of the lobster and the lobster shell? Have you heard this before?
I don't know
So
that.
when
No.
I found that whole turning 40, I mean, it's such a cliche, but I did find turning 40 to be quite difficult. And, also happened during COVID, and I couldn't see my family. And there was,
Yeah.
other sort of anxieties around that whole time.
Mm,
But I just felt so uncomfortable. I felt so vulnerable, and kind of just I just didn't feel, I don't know. I can't really explain it, but a friend of mine said, "Oh, you're just like a lobster. You've shed one shell and you're waiting to grow a new shell." And I guess what happens with lobsters is they like outgrow their shells and they have to shed the shell, and then they have to go like hide under rocks because they're like a lobster without a hard shell on the outside until they grow a new one.
oh, wow.
And that time of transition can feel so vulnerable, right? You can feel so like you are vulnerable, you don't have an outside shell. But what happens is you grow into a bigger shell, and then you're comfortable, and you can
Mm,
be really who you really are in this new shell. And I think I hopefully that analogy is actually correct, because I think about it quite often about how I was definitely a lobster without her shell, and now I'm so much happier in my new shell. And I just think that that is what life is so about. We're constantly growing and evolving and becoming better, and
Right.
growing into bigger, better shells, and I just think how wonderful is that? I honestly wouldn't want to go back to being 39 or 35 or 30. Obviously, um, I look at photos of myself then and I think, oh, I look so young. And, it would be so nice to look so young again, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I really just feel so grateful for the I don't know, the lessons that come with growing older. And
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah. That's really sweet. I think I'm still without my shell, but um
Mm.
in that vulnerable section.
Um, but I also think there's a lot of beauty in that transition too, that
Oh,
real deep vulnerability that you feel when you're without your shell. I think I remember being in it and being at the grocery store and like trying to choose like the apples that were like the hardest, like I was choosing apples and I looked over and there was a woman and I we looked at each other and something about the way she looked at me, it was like I was receptive to the her and in a way that I think I hadn't been up until that point. You can kind of go through life and you're busy and you're doing your thing and you're kind of like this. And then I found when I was going through that phase, I was just so tender and almost made me feel a deeper connection to other people around me and having more awareness for other people's feelings. And it really made me emotionally more in tune.
mm-hmm.
And you can have that. You can have like you can be in the grocery store and have a look at someone
Yeah.
and feel that real like you see each other, and I
Yeah.
think sometimes, yeah, those transitions, they're hard to go through, but they're also really beautiful.
Right.
And like you, I had was dealing with death in our family, and that too, I think that grief has a lot to do with opening your eyes to other people and
Yeah.
being, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I I think my advice would be to just lean into it and really feel the feelings, because and then you get to come out the other end feeling stronger, and you will. And that's what growing up is all about. Getting
Yes.
better and better.
Exactly. Exactly. What are you looking forward to? Like, do you have something professionally or personally that you're still wanting to achieve or work on, or something new?
Well, my husband and I recently we wrote a book this year,
Mm.
and that's exciting. So that um, doesn't come out until next year, September, and which feels like ages. I'm so used to writing ebooks and having creating online content where you write it and you push publish and then it's there. Um, so it feels like ages still to wait for this
Oh,
book to come out, but yeah, so it comes out next year, September. It's a book called The Family Home, and um, it we share ideas and tips and our experience in creating a home that helps you slow down and spend more time together and embrace rituals that are important to you and your family, encourage independence and autonomy in your children, invite more play into your life. And so it's all kind of these beautiful themes,
mm,
all kind of centered around the idea of your home and how your home can help you do those things. And so yeah, I think it's going to be good. We've written it, and I've now traveled a bit to go and photograph
wow.
um, for the book. And so I can really visualize it now, and I'm really just
Mm,
very excited about it. So that's cool. And I already have ideas for another book after that. So that's also exciting. I'm going to start writing that soon. So I'm kind
mm,
of hoping, um, I'm kind of hoping to spend less time on my online and more time doing physical things. And so that I think is a goal for me, to try to even whether, I have an online community and I have an online membership, and so, and we do these live meetups, and that's my favorite thing about that membership, is being able to have really beautiful discussions with people. But I'd love to even start maybe having those in-person kind of things where you're connecting with people in person. And I'm really craving that, um, just that more kind of physical, tangible, personable thing, and maybe less time on social media, less time online would be the goal.
Yeah. Yes. So great. So where can listeners find you?
Well, I have a website called, which is just courtneyadamo.com. And I have a blog there where I've shared lots of ideas and tips and parenting tips and recipes and craft projects and all of that. And that's all just free. And then I also have online courses. So I have one on tweens and teens, which is really research based. And I share a lot of interviews with experts and lots of things I've learned from experience and from the research I've done. So that's kind of a helpful course. I have ebooks, like I said. So I have a whole ebook for having kids at home and how to entertain them at home with, whether it's games, toys, educational activities, books, crafts, all of that. So I've got an ebook on that. So I've got various forms of ways to connect. And I also have a monthly membership program where people can join, and I share new things every month, and we have online meetups and we talk about really cool topics, and yeah. And so all of that is on my website.
Amazing. I am so grateful that you were here. I really genuinely enjoyed talking to you. It was lovely to hear from you, especially just about your intentionality that you've created every day. And it's really inspiring. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been really nice chatting, and I'm always so flattered to be asked our parenting and our family life. I'm by no means an expert, but I have been doing it for a while, and always happy to share and to talk to other like-minded people as well. And you're a mother of 5 as well, so that's beautiful
Yeah.
to be able to talk with you.
Thank you. Thanks. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.